Hello, everybody. Welcome to Kent with Bent, number 171, back to the Hovind, part 2. We are, in fact, back to the Hovind. Kent Hovind, Uncle Kent, if you will, or even if you won't, I don't care. Bent Hovind, no relation. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I am doing okay, although I have realized just recently that I can now demonstrate beyond any reasonable doubt that manifesting is bullshit.
Hmm,
Yeah, because if manifesting were real, it would have happened by now.
that's true.
Yup, it didn't, so it's not. So, hey, anyone who's a big fan of The Secret, you can just toss that book out. It's fake. Not that, thinking positively and having a positive outlook on life is a bad idea. It's not going to magically get you whatever you want, or anything that you want. You're still going to have to actually, work for it. So, yep, we've collectively disproven manifesting over the past week or so, I think. So, sad days. But hey, that's okay. We got a pretty cool show for you today, and I want to let you know that last show on Saturday, half of the super chats and membership money and all that, up until a certain value, was going to Bent to help offset some repair costs that had been incurred. And first, I want to verify, Bent, you did in fact get that money.
I did indeed. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And today, half of the super chat and the other, membership money and whatnot is going to Dapper this time.
Nice.
So, yeah, Dapper's going to get half of it. Yep. Also, we are done with Power Rangers for the after show thing, at least until there's a new season. And even then, I mean, I'm not going to watch it immediately. I plan to watch it at some point, but but we are on to Godzilla. So anyone who is interested in watching the 1954 Godzilla over on the Discord, that setting, we're not going to broadcast it on YouTube. That's a big old no-no. But yeah, we're going to go over to the Discord and we're going to have a little watch party, watch the original Godzilla. I in fact bought it. Well, I paid for indefinite streaming rights for it that can be revoked at any time, and I have no recourse if they are. But they haven't yet been revoked. So hooray! Let's see. I think the only other big housekeeping thing is, yeah, YouTube is still lying to me, but I do believe that we are currently 102 members away from Mudkip Davis. But that's assuming that if we go over, the 2, that YouTube isn't still lying to me about that, and we actually need, 5,000 or something. I don't know at this point. Because every time I check, it seems to be a different number than what YouTube is telling me, and sometimes it's a different number than the last time I was checking. So, I don't even know anymore. Yeah. I've kind of given up on YouTube giving me the right information about this. So there you go. But we are still hoping against hope to get the Mudkip Davis emoji one of these days. But hey, we are not here to talk about Mudkip Davis, or even Godzilla, or even Power Rangers. We're here to talk about Uncle Kent, as we stated at the beginning. So, for those of you who might be new, we have a little drinking game. You can see we have 0 drinks on the counter right now. That number can only go up. I mean, unless I decide to make it go down, which I don't think I've ever done, but it can't stop me. Watch.
I can't stop you.
Look, now it's at -1. Everyone spit up 1 drink worth of whatever. That's how it works. No, I'm kidding. Let's go through the drink triggers. So first of all, we will take a drink anytime Kent Hovind says something so stupid that we just kind of have to cool our brains off. Sometimes we need brain cooling from all the psychic damage. Helps protect you against subsequent psychic damage. We will also take a drink anytime Kent Hovind tells a joke that doesn't land, or tells a story that we're pretty sure didn't happen. Now that is a bit of a judgment call because we don't have, access to his every moment of his life play by play. So, we have to go with what we've got. So bit of a judgment call, but hey, that's okay because here's the other thing: the drinks don't actually matter; they're just made up. It's a fun thing we do. Oh, and hey, there's Pega Jace, the Pasta Apostate, who has sent in 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships. So thank you very much. And let's take 5 drinks for that, because that is another drink trigger. If you send in Gifted memberships, we'll take a drink for each one up until we have like a thing of 30, at which point I'm probably just going to finish whatever I have here. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I might need to stir that a little bit more. It's very rum forward, if you will. Yeah, potent is another way to talk about that. Okay, so we'll also take a drink if Kent Hovind gets something right. Now, it can't just be something he's quoting. He has to actually have a correct bit of information in his brain and then transmit that information via encoded speech to his vocal apparatus, which then speaks out the words, which then are received by our ears and interpreted by our brain as correct information. At that point, we will take a drink. So, we will also take a drink if Kent Hovind mentions that political party from the 1930s into the 40s in Germany that was, kind of in charge. We'll also take a drink if Kent Hovind mentions anything we can know about Lucy, that the Australopithecus afarensis, almost said Homo afarensis, which would be wrong. That if he says anything about like that group, Australopithecus afarensis, or just Australopithecus, or hominins, or any other larger group to which he belongs, that is based just on her skeleton, like saying, well, we don't know if Australopithecus could walk upright because Lucy didn't have any feet. Yeah, if he says anything like that, that's called a ad hominid. We only get one of those per stream. We take a drink because, of course, we have other Australopithecus and even Australopithecus afarensis specimens. So we don't need to rely just on one specimen. We will also take a drink if Kent Hovind cites a source and we can go check that source, and we do, and we find that not only does the source fail to support his position, but it actively contradicts his position. We call that a Trojan source. We take a drink for that. We'll also take a drink if Bent or I can guess something correctly. We'll also take a drink for every super chat or membership milestone chat that has either a kaiju emoji, which we can see that Trill McSee, who's been a member for 27 months at the Admiral level, has sent in when saying kaiju emoji, Mothra, Godzilla, and Ghidorah. So there you go. We'll take a drink for that. We'll also take a drink for every super chat or membership chat that says anything to the effect that Answers in Genesis or AIG is a bag of dicks. That stems from a abuse of the YouTube copyright system that they were doing years ago at this point. But I don't care, because they're still a bunch of dicks. So, like, that hasn't changed. They're just not doing that one particular dickish thing anymore. Roshina for $4.99 says, Kent having a globe on his desk just proves he's part of the Globus conspiracy. It's true. Oh, man, I wish that video of him trying to defend the globe Earth against flat earthers wasn't gone, because it was one of the most embarrassing defenses of the globe Earth imaginable. It was just basically like Kent holding up a globe and then calling flat earthers stupid, which, well, he's not wrong about that. Like, that isn't an argument, though. That doesn't do anything. There's no reason the Earth is round. The Earth isn't round because flat earthers are stupid. The Earth is round and flat earthers are stupid. Yeah, so I really wish I had a way to find that. If anyone can find that on, like, one of his Rumble channels or some crap like that, let me know, because I would love to get that clip. Bent. Oh, wait, if I screw up the production. So, for instance, if I were to say, ask Bent a question, but I had accidentally muted him, like, hey, Bent, what am I missing besides Dapper as a professional? Yeah, see, just like that. If I mute him like that, and so you can't hear his response, then we take a drink for Dapper as a professional. But that was intentional. That wasn't a screw-up. It also can't be, like, a problem with software or hardware, like if my computer explodes or catches fire, or if the YouTube headquarters sinks into the earth or something like that. Not on me. But yes, if we get either Mothra or Godzilla to come by audibly, we'll also take a drink, which can happen semi-randomly. I think I've covered everything, right, Bent?
Yes, you have.
All right, you're not muted anymore, in case you're wondering.
Yay!
Yay! All right, so when last we left off, Kent Hovind was talking a whole lot about rubbing logs together, because he just really likes it when big pieces of wood rub together, I guess. That's one of his minor obsessions, shall we say. Which actually tracks with other things that I am not at liberty to disclose, but that I do happen to know about Kent Hovind. So let's just say that in a not too unsurprising twist, I think what we have is yet another virulently homophobic Christian preacher who sometimes likes to have sex with men. So, can't prove it, but I'm like 80% or so confident that that's a thing that has happened at least a few times. Yeah. So, but can't prove it, and it's just what I have taken away from what I know, or have been told by reliable sources. Neuromdipus for $5 says Draco Rocks, Hogwartsia, Gorilla, and Obamadon gracilis are all real scientific things. Well, they would be if you didn't accidentally capitalize Hogwartsia, which shouldn't be capitalized, because it's the second part of a binomial, which is always not capitalized. But yes, other than that, those are in fact real scientific things. Gorilla being one of my favorite. Yep. Every once in a while you get one of those Latin names where one of those binomials where the first and the second part are the same. Genus and species. Alright, Bent, I think we have covered everything. Now, the reason that Kent was talking about all this wood rubbing together wasn't because he was describing his Friday nights. It's because he was describing the logs floating at the top of Spirit Lake in the aftermath of the Mount St. Helens eruption. And he's going to be telling us more about his take on how that proves something about how there could have been a flood, because there were volcanoes during the flood, I guess, and that caused trees to rub together and something. I don't know. It didn't make a whole lot of sense last time, and I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time trying to think about how to make sense of it now. But yeah, so there we go. Here we go.
Coal can form in just a few hours.
In a lab, yeah. That's true.
There's an article in Chemical Technology in 1972 about how to form coal in a few hours.
Cool. Lots of things can happen faster in a lab than they can happen in the wild. That's sort of why we do a lot of laboratory tests. That something can happen rapidly in a lab isn't evidence that it actually happened rapidly in nature.
Argonne National Laboratory showed that coal can form.
Argonne National, is that a real thing? Someone check on that for me. Is Argonne National Laboratories a real thing? Because that sounds fake.
By heating wood, clay, and water for 36 weeks to only 150 degrees. If you get higher temperatures, it forms faster.
Hey, neat.
During the flood, you would have massive log mats as big as Texas floating around, because huge forests were uprooted during this flood. They'd float around for months.
Where are your numbers on the log mats specifically the size of Texas, Kent? How do you know they're not the same size of Alaska, or the size of California, or some other random-ass U.S. state? Where do you get any of this? Now, the thing is, I think he actually gets it from Kurt Wise, because one of Kurt Wise's big things is floating vegetation mats that are the result of themselves spawning, basically, from floating forests, which he thinks only existed as a result of a miracle and that they were created in situ because he knows that they couldn't have grown in situ. So, like, I think that's where Kent gets this. And Kurt Wise bases it, I believe, on the like estimated total volume of like coal deposits on Earth or something like that, or maybe it's just Paleozoic and Mesozoic coal deposits or something. It's something like that. Which I mean isn't nothing, but like we're adding a whole lot of assumptions into this, like that these floating forests ever existed or even could exist. That they all broke away and floated for about the same amount of time. That they would have been buried at about the same time altogether, because apparently all the plants in there have basically the same rough approximate time to like lose their buoyancy or something. It's like it's one of those explanations that when you listen to Kurt Wise explain it, as long as you don't think too hard about it. Oh, there's Mothra. Thanks, Mothra. As long as you don't think about it too much. Like, yeah, it kind of makes sense. I can kind of see how you get there. Yeah. Oh, by the way, YouTube is now claiming 97 members. So take that with a grain of salt, but like, maybe. yeah, so, like, of course, I also have covered Kurt Wise talking about this. And that's the video series in which Kurt Wise put up a graphic that claimed that pine trees were extinct. Now, I don't live too close to pine trees, but I have lived close to pine trees, and I remember seeing them not that long ago. And if you're in the audience and you've seen pine trees, say, today, that were alive, please let me know. Because if you have, then I'm going to say that Kurt Wise is full of shit. He's also one of those guys who's been largely expunged from Answers in Genesis. Basically because he doesn't agree with them on anything, and so on everything, and so they've labeled him a young Earth evolutionist because there are certain things that he disagrees with them about, which is a little weird since Kurt Wise is also the brain behind a lot of the displays and like signage at the Creation Museum and the Ark Encounter. But yeah, nope, they've largely ostracized him from that, despite the fact that he remains a huge source of information and ideas for them. Let's see. Zerlon says, I can see one out of my window right now. Ashley Loves Bahai says, I saw one a week ago. Borg says, I'm looking at one right now. Let's see. Old news is good news. It doesn't seem to have heard of pine trees. Becca Justiniano has a pine tree living in their backyard. Jillian also has a pine tree in the backyard. Pega Jace has seen some the day before yesterday. Let's see. Madam Sloth has pine trees in their aunt's driveway. Let's see. Dutch Tunicate Official is currently surrounded by pine trees. Regios has pine trees in their yard. They seem alive. Yeah, so let's see. Dutch Tunicate Official says, I saw millions this trip alone. Yeah, so Kurt Wise, not the greatest source, not the most reliable guy. Just putting it out there.
As they floated across the ocean, it would leave a debris trail behind it.
I love how the flood is exactly as turbulent or as calm as is needed for any particular thing to form. On the one hand, it's this roiling, monstrous pile of nonsense that's able to deposit, like, hundreds of meters worth of sediment that can't even deposit faster than a few centimeters a millennium. And then at other times, and also sometimes it's shredding up dinosaurs like a blender. And at other times, a little floating mat of vegetation can just leave a coherent peat layer as it slowly falls apart under the effects of the flood. I'm just gonna take a drink for the degree to which the flood is whatever it needs to be in the moment, and that doesn't matter at all if it corresponds to anything else the flood has ever been in any other moment that you've ever talked about. Just amazing. Oh, hey, maybe he got it from Steve Austin. That's not Stone Cold Steve Austin. Nor is it Steve Austin, the $6 Million Man. No. I feel like I'm missing the Steve Austin, and it's not. Is there another Steve Austin I'm forgetting about?
Not that I know of.
All right.
Sticks, leaves, limbs, logs, bark. That debris trail is going to turn into coal. Coal is almost always found in layers.
That's true. I'll take a drink. Like most things in the ground, it's found in layers. Good job, Ken. Oh, man.
Best explained as being a sedimentary deposit.
I mean, yes and no, because it's primarily not made of sediment, which are, tiny bits of rock, and not logs and bark. But they're usually deposited in a sedimentary environment, like a wetland, that has sediment that's flowing in from waterways. So that's one of those, he's kind of right, but he's also, missing a lot of the important stuff that's going on. So, I don't know.
Put down during the time of the flood in the days of Noah. This picture from a text.
Now remember, we have currently in the world today places that are doing what coal-forming forests were doing in the ancient past, which is to say, depositing peat. They're called peat bogs. You might have heard of them. There's a bunch of them in places like Scotland, where peat is a traditional source of fuel for things like fires. People used to cook with peat. It's also one of the reasons why Scotch, the whiskey, has a particular flavor. Because of the peaty earth that things are grown in and whatnot. So, and if you leave it for long enough, it'll form coal. Now, my question to Kent is, why hasn't it done so yet? Right? If coal can form over the course of a few months during the flood, what made the coal form so much faster during the flood than it is in, say, modern peat bogs? Now, what Kent might say is like, well, you can't heat that peat up to 150 Celsius. Okay, well, could the flood? I don't know, because I feel like that would be boiling the water. And if it's the water's boiling, that's less of a flood and more of a steam bath. So, like, I feel like the flood couldn't be over 150. Although, of course, with the heat problem, the peat would just burn away anyway, long before the flood was over. So, I mean, there's that. But if we ignore the heat problem, pretend there is no heat problem, then, yeah. Oh, hey, remember that time that Raw Matt said that the heat problem was solved by the oceans absorbing the heat? And it's like, well, it will absorb the heat, Matt, but that doesn't solve the problem. Oh, hey, Mothra's back. Thanks, Mothra. Oh, and she's back again. Goodness, Mothra's very busy today. And another time... Oh, I know what's happening. A friend of mine is in Seattle and is now just dumping pictures at me from the Seattle trip. I'm pretty sure I just got like 10 or so pictures in a row from that trip.
Wow.
Just now. Yeah.
That's a lot.
Well, it's a place that I've been to more than my friend has, and so now, you know, my friend wants to share all the things in Seattle that they've now experienced that I've also experienced. So, you know. Might have finished song for $2.22 says, Hail Daps and Hail Schrodinger's Turbulence. Yes, with a wave emoji. Yeah, Schrodinger's Turbulence really does describe it. It's... Oh, man. All right, here we go.
Next book, or from Reader's Digest here, is what is called karst topography. On the left, you can see the caves form in limestone.
Hey, here's a fun thing about limestone caves. We can measure how fast limestone, now this is non-biogenic limestone, which means it is deposited as an evaporite after dissolving from biogenic limestone. But we can measure how fast that stuff deposits and how long it takes caves to form. And guess what? It is consistently longer than 6,000 years. Which means these caves that Ken's talking about on their own prove the Earth is too old for this. And the problem is, you might say, well, what if they're actually just remnants of pre-flood caves? Well, we have a problem with that, because the limestone that is the biogenic limestone that is dissolving to form the non-biogenic evaporite limestone in the caves that forms things like stalactites and stalagmites, that has to have been deposited first. And that limestone deposit that is the source for this non-biogenic limestone is consistently stuff that creationists say is flood rock, which means the caves have to come after the flood, which means they can't be pre-flood caves. So, yeah. It's one of the reasons why a lot of creationists will put the flood boundary at, like, the end of the Cretaceous. It's because that way, caves, none of which date back that far, can all be accounted for as post-flood formations, which they kind of have to be, but it causes a lot of other problems because that's where, you know, we find a lot of hominid diversity and hominin specifically, right? So things like Australopithecus and various Homo species, things that a lot of creationists would love to be able to dismiss, but they have to be something that's post-flood for them. And so it's like, well, these can't just be apes that just died during the flood. So why do we have all these human-like apes after the flood? What's going on? Was Noah an Australopithecus afarensis or something? I don't know. It's a little weird. So yeah, caves are they're one of those things that, like, the more you look into caves, the harder it is to explain in a young Earth creationist paradigm, which is one of the reasons I think why creationists just tend not to talk about caves, except to lie about, like, dissolving concrete with quicklime forming stalactite and stalagmite-like structures in things like parking lots. But the thing is, quicklime and limestone aren't the same thing. They're made of different chemicals. And yes, quicklime is derived from limestone after it's been fired and has changed its chemical properties. You don't get concrete if you just mix in regular old limestone. You have to use quicklime. Not the same thing. So, yeah.
The Earth does have many layers. That's not the question. The question is, how did it get that way?
Yes, Ken. And there is a set of explanations that are consistent with the laws of physics and logic and what we know about reality. And then there's young Earth creationism.
I think the flood is the best explanation.
It's cool that you think that, Kent. But it's so far physically impossible as near as we can tell. So, creationists who want to do geology, flood geology that are out there, your first task is to come up with a physically possible scenario for the flood to be the cause of anything that we see on Earth. Then, your next bit of work is to find out how you can make that a better explanation than the scientific explanation. Once you've figured out both of those, which I think are both going to be impossible, then you actually have something to say in the topic of geology and geomorphology and the history of the Earth. Till then, yeah, you don't really have a whole lot, do you?
To the right at the bottom, you can see the plume sticking up into it. Sometimes there are salt plumes, sometimes there are sand plumes extending right through the layers of rock, distorting them.
That's true. Take a drink. That is a thing that happens.
And you get into all that in Earth science class, which is fascinating.
It is fascinating, Kent. Especially in how hard it destroys the idea of the flood. But who cares about that, right?
I debated a lady, I debated a woman.
I don't care, Kent.
Named Dr. Eugenia Scott, who is the president of the National Center for Science Education.
That's true. Take a drink.
Watch that.
That is what she
name,
is.
because
or was.
they're the ones who they were founded by Carnegie back 100 years ago, I think. Their purpose is to keep creation out of schools.
I mean, it's not quite that, but that is a big focus of theirs. Really, it's to make sure that non-science isn't taught in science classrooms. But for much of its history, the only people who have been really, really pushing to have things that aren't science taught in science classrooms as if they were science was anti-evolutionists, which was largely Christian creationists, both old and young Earth. So as a result, that became a big focus of that organization. But that's not like the goal. If there were a whole lot of people who were like, oh, we're going to push, I don't know, like Hindu old Earth craziness where they're like, oh yeah, no, the Earth is actually like 14 trillion years old. Really? Not 4.5 billion, that's wrong. And humans have been around that whole time? Because that's the thing that you'll find some, like, you know, people spouting on the basis of various Hindu scriptures. If that was a big thing in the United States, I can guarantee you that Eugenia Scott would be just as opposed to that. Right? Or if there was a big contingent of, like, I don't know, Catholics who are trying to push geocentrism, but were happy with the old Earth and evolution, you can bet that she would be opposing that in classrooms too. Right? It also comes up with, like, why do atheists concentrate so much on Christianity? It's like, it's because you're listening to Anglophone atheists who are dealing with a group of people, well, who are in societies where the current source of religiously motivated nonsense is coming from certain areas in Christianity, right? Like, there isn't a huge influx of, say, like, I don't know, Muslims trying to teach the night flight of Muhammad to Jerusalem and then up to heaven as history in U.S. history classrooms. If that was happening, then I imagine that most of the Anglosphere atheists would have a lot to say about it. But that's not what's happening. And when I say that, I don't mean that all Christians are doing anything like that. Most Christians are not trying to get pseudoscience taught in schools. Most Christians, even the ones who believe in pseudoscience, just don't have time to do that kind of thing. They're too busy, you know, having lives. But among the people who are doing things like that, among the people who are trying to restrict certain kinds of fertility treatment, or nowadays trying to restrict who can get, in some cases successfully restrict, who can get vital vaccines, or who are trying to push back on basic earth science, primarily Christians. So I'm sorry, Protestant evangelical Christians, which is most of doing this. But the fact that people don't want non-science taught in science classrooms is an oppression. It's not an attack on you. It's not even an attack on religion or Christianity. In fact, the people doing the attacking is you. You are the ones attacking science education. You are the ones attacking medicine. You are the ones attacking people's basic dignity and ability to live unmolested, provided that they're peaceful in society in ways that make them not feel like they want to die. It's you guys. And I know that it doesn't feel like it, but that's because you are used to the idea that you should be the standard by which society measures itself. But that's never been true.
That's why they exist. During the debate, she said to me, Dr. Hovind, there are 80 separate layers of coal.
I very much doubt that she ever said Dr. Hovind.
In the Midwest. She's right. She said, if you look at the amount of coal in the world, the entire biomass of the world today could not be converted to
Borgen Porty says, wait, there are people trying to limit vaccines? Yeah, the access to COVID vaccines has already been restricted. And now, as of the last rules propagated by Health and Human Services, you need a doctor's recommendation in order to get the vaccine. And if you get the vaccine as a result of such a doctor's recommendation, and then there are anything that you can attribute to the vaccine that are negative side effects or other consequences, according to Health and Human Services, as far as I know, this hasn't been tested, but as far as they're concerned, that opens up that doctor to a personal lawsuit from you for having recommended the vaccine. Also, any further federal funding to mRNA vaccines, the vaccines that can be developed in lightning fast time with extremely high efficacy, there's the word. Yeah, that's just no more funding from the government. Nope, we're done with it. So, yeah.
that much fossil fuel. She's right again. What she's saying is here, there is so much coal in the ground, there aren't enough trees today to make that same amount of coal. Take every tree and bush in the world, smash it, you can't make the coal we have. Okay, what's your point?
It's not just that there aren't enough trees now, it's that you could not fit enough trees on the surface of the Earth. Also, have we seen this already?
I don't think so.
Okay, I feel like I've just given this statement earlier. Maybe it was a different creationist. They do tend to blend together a little bit.
She said, see, this proves there had to have been an enormous amount of time involved in the laying down of the coal seams.
I mean, it does, yeah. Or at least more than a year.
Now, where's the flaw in her logic?
There isn't any, Ken.
Trees were bigger before the flood.
Doesn't matter. There's still not enough space on Earth. Plus, what evidence do you have that trees were bigger before the flood, Kent? Is that just something you made up just now? Take a drink.
Seems like it.
A lot more of them.
So here's one thing, right? Lignin is the structural element of trees that helps them get tall, right? There's a limit to how tall a tree can get based on just the strength of lignin. Think about with any other material, right? You can only make a pillar of any given material so tall before it collapses under its own weight, regardless of what proportions it has, right? The taller it is, the thicker you're going to have to make it be able to withstand that. And eventually you're going to get to the point where it has to just be too thick to stand up. It's one of the reasons why mammals can't get much bigger than Indricotherium, which is an extinct rhino relative. It's because mammal bones can't really get much thicker without causing problems for things like locomotion. And they're not strong enough to get much taller at that thickness that they were in Indricotherium. The same thing is true for lignin. Trees can't get much bigger than modern redwoods. They just physically can't. So, Like, is the argument that all trees were as big as redwoods? Even then, we still have too much coal, Kent. Roshan for $4.99 says, RFK Jr. doesn't want a cancer or HIV vaccine because he's scared of 4 letters. I actually have not heard specifically that he's trying to block those, but it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, look, vaccines are one of the safest and most effective interventions and cases of preventative medicine that have ever been invented by humans. That's not to say that there are no risks associated with them, because there are risks associated with every medical intervention. I don't care what it is. There's risks associated with taking aspirin. There's risks associated with having your warts removed, right? There's risks associated with orthodontists. There are risks associated with every single medical intervention you can come up with. But by and large, the risks associated with vaccines are some of the most negligible risks in all of medicine. And the benefits are some of the heaviest. Which means that unless you have a specific reason why you in particular cannot get a particular vaccine, like you're allergic to an ingredient, or you're immunocompromised, or something like that, getting vaccines is one of the most important things you can do, not only for your own health, but for the health of those around you who might not be able to get those vaccines or who do not have access to them. If you are worried about the risks of vaccine side effects on, say, your baby, again, unless you happen to know that your baby has some kind of reason not to get these vaccines, chances are that the trip to the doctor's office in your car and the trip back is orders of magnitudes more risky than the vaccines that you're taking your kid to go get. Vaccines are one of the best things that humans have ever invented.
Knocked down by the flood. One more really major factor. How many trees are growing now in the Pacific Ocean? More land mass, sure. More land area. You get more.
Again, how do you know there was more land area before the flood, Kent? That's not in the Bible. Is it something you just made up? But even if it is, Kent, you could cover the entire Earth several times over in trees and still not get enough trees to make the coal we have. It doesn't matter. The problem here isn't like, oh, you know, like we've got 20% too much coal. It's like we have 2,000 times much coal, Kent.
Whoops.
It's like someone tells you that, oh, you know, Kent, your brick and wood house won't withstand an atomic bomb. And your answer is like, what if I put one more house in front of it? It doesn't matter!
Or forests. Period.
That snort is something the editor could have cut out in post. It's gonna... You don't even have to cut the video. You can just cut the audio. Leave the video intact. Oh, and the thing is, I know he has an editor. Oh. And it bugs me as someone who spends a good part of his time every week cutting out my own weird noises that I make as I talk that aren't caught by, like, noise removal or whatever. I'm always removing clicks or little coughs or throat clearings or sniffles or whatever. You don't hear it much when I'm live because I have pretty decent automatic noise cancellation, but it's not as granular as I want for pre-recorded audio. So I don't usually use it for pre-recorded audio, but like, it just bugs me when someone who has an editor, even if it's themselves, is just too lazy to do the basic editing things that I do as a matter of course, where I think I'm doing like the bare minimum.
Yeah, no polar caps, no deserts, you know, a lot more.
Again, Kent, you're just making this up. What reason do you have to say that there was both more land and no deserts? Water has to get to places in order for there to not be a desert. If there's more land, then the water from the ocean, which is primarily how you get non-deserts, is going to have a harder time getting to all of the land. If anything, there should be more deserts, Kent. I mean, think about Dune, right? From Frank Herbert's Dune. Do you think that maybe the fact that there are no oceans and that that planet is entirely a desert might be connected? And that maybe if Dune had oceans,
Yeah.
maybe it wouldn't all be a desert? Like, there's a reason that these things go together, and that distance from the ocean tends to correlate with aridity. Now, it's not a simple one-to-one correlation because there's wind patterns and it's more complex than that. But overall, at, like, back of the envelope level, the biggest consideration in terms of how arid is this area going to be tends to be distance from the ocean. What? He doesn't even know how the water cycle works. This is amazing. Taking a drink. Roshan from 199 says, Ken thinks it never rained pre-flood, which is an even bigger reason to think that there would be deserts. Because then you're relying on, like, what, dew? Okay, well, guess what, Kent? That still doesn't form unless you're near some water. Because you know what dew forms from? Basically fog. You know what fog is? Low-lying clouds. You know what clouds form from? Evaporated water, Kent. Where do you get that water? Probably the ocean. Yeah.
Land area to support this kind of thing. Creation Magazine had an article in 1997 about coal seams. They're drilling down, they hit a seam of coal, they dig the coal out, dig down through some more rock, find some more coal. And they'll say, oh yeah, this one is millions of years older than this one.
Do they say that? Because I don't actually know. I haven't seen you actually give us an example of, like, a real science paper dating these coal seams that you're complaining about. Because one of the things I know about Kent is that he will just lie when he says that scientists will tell you these layers are different ages by millions of years. He does the same thing when he talks about quote-unquote polystrate fossils. He's like, see this petrified tree standing upright? Those layers are millions of years apart, according to evolutionary scientists. Except, no one says that. No one has ever assessed them as being millions of years apart. Ever. So when he says things like this, and I don't know the answer, I just have to assume that he's not right about it.
As they're mining this coal, they found out they come together.
Okay.
Now, what does that say?
Probably there were hills that formed as a result of things like sediment deposition. Yep. I don't know if you know this, Kent, but sometimes streams can actually build up mounds as they flow. So, you know about meanders, right? In a river?
No.
No? The meander is where a river starts to make a little curly Q shape, right?
Okay.
And then sometimes the meander can get cut off, and the stream will cut past the meander, and then it leaves an oxbow lake as the remnants of the meander. You hear about oxbow lakes?
I haven't.
Don't you come from a place full of lakes?
There's plenty of lakes where I grew up. Plenty. Even some really big ones, some great ones.
Wow, like a Great Lake?
Yeah.
Huh. You know how I remember the names of the Great Lakes, right?
How do you remember them?
L.
Ah.
For like
It's
Lake Huron, Lake Ontario, right? Lake Michigan, Lake Erie. There you go.
You're missing one.
Oh, that doesn't matter.
If you say so.
Yeah, those are that last one is it's actually a lesser lake. It's we don't talk about it.
It's the biggest one.
No, it's not.
If you say so.
All right, but I just lost my train of thought. Oh, right. So when a meander is forming, and you have the bank where the meander itself is concave, right? That bank tends to actually have sediment build up against it, which can form a little bump there as the rest of the area starts to erode a bit, especially after the meander gets cut off. So maybe it just means that, Kent. Maybe it means the normal things that happen in wetlands. I don't know. Could be that. Or maybe, because of that shit-eating grin, Ken is going to make something up about the flood that isn't in the Bible, and it doesn't even make sense given the other things he said about the flood, and maybe he'll blame it on that.
Formed at the same time, right?
No, Kent. What in the world about that means that they formed at the same time? How do you get to that conclusion, Kent? It really is the case that he'll just look at anything and be like, well, I don't see how that could have formed at different times. It must have formed at the same time. Why? Because he's already decided that everything formed at the same time. He doesn't actually have a reason for thinking that. That's just what he's decided has to be the case, so he sees everything as an piece of evidence of that thing. I'm going to take another drink.
Yeah, he's pretty biased.
Yeah. Is this worse than last time? It feels worse than last time.
It really is.
Okay.
The area in between the two coal seams would be called a lens.
Okay.
You can get an ice lens, you can get a rock lens, you can get a...
Somehow I feel like the coal seams that are being mined in places like England or North America don't have ice lenses. But hey, what do I know?
coal lens. It's an area of, like a lens for your glasses or something like that. The branching coal seams prove those layers formed all simultaneously. Here's Dr. Don McDonald, a friend of...
Okay, so that's a picture of a so-called Polystrate fossil, because I know that what we're doing with creationists. Does this mean we're just going on to another topic?
Unfortunately, I think it is.
Oh, and hey, we've got another phone number as a source.
Ooh, and a fact number.
Although, to be fair, he also gave us a website. So there's a URL there. So there, at least there's that.
Mine from Troy State University, and here's his phone number. That's him standing there to the left, next to a petrified tree standing up, running out of a seam of coal, through, I think, 20 feet of rock.
Ben, you see that dark part?
Yes.
Would you be surprised if I told you that that's not a seam of coal?
I would not be surprised.
What do you think it is?
I think it's just rock.
Why is there a dark band there, though?
I mean, it could be a shadow.
Yeah, it is a shadow. You know how you can tell? Because part of the rock isn't in shadow, and it bisects that entire layer, and you can just tell that that's actually just a shadow. One of those reliable Kent Hovind baffling things. A shadow. There's no coal seam. It's a... I'm getting a headache. I can feel one of my eyes trying to pop out of my head right now.
Well, that's not good.
No, it's not. Oh, I need... Someone needs to send more gift memberships so I can just take a bunch more drinks. Roshi of 499 says, grinding stones are what we use on AIG's back of vacuum. Thank you. I'll take a drink for that. Oh, man. It's a shadow, Kent. It's just a shadow. You can see the same thing in other places on the same rock. Wow. Oh, and then Roshi gave me another message that's spelling bacula correctly. Thank you. I wasn't going to mention it. I was just going to let it go.
Into another seam of coal up above.
It isn't pictured, by the way. Just made up.
Tell me those layers formed millions of years apart.
I'm not telling you that, Kent. No one is telling you that, Kent. No one is telling you that because some layers are separated by millions of years, that all layers in all circumstances everywhere on Earth are also millions of years different in age. No one has ever been saying that. That's not the claim. You're refuting a straw man. Those are laminae, which are layers that exist within a stratum, right? So a stratum represents a particular depositional environment with a particular kind of rock that forms there, right? Inside of a stratum, you will find laminae often, which are variations of that rock that are occurring because of things like seasonal effects, like in varves, or that might be forming as a result of, like, if you have a desert, maybe sand is only blown into the desert during certain times of year because the prevailing winds change during that time of year. Or maybe you're getting things like a braided stream full of plants where there's occasional flooding that's somewhat irregular, but that happens, every few decades or so. That can cause laminae. Laminae are generally only separated by, like, years to centuries, not millions of years. Now, centuries would be a long time for these trees to persist, but in the cases of most of the trees that we're seeing as, like, petrified trees, we're talking, like, decades between laminae in most cases. We can tell for a few reasons. One is because the trees do actually show evidence of having rotted away after a certain point of time, right? But also, we can see paleosols at the boundaries between the laminae in many cases, and we know that soil and a paleosoil is just a petrified soil, takes years to a decade to form. And then we can see plant growth in that soil, which means that there had to also be time for the soil to form and for plants to grow in the soil. Which means what we're looking at is decades of separation, probably, in most cases. Dutch Tunicate Official for $2 says, this shadow proves my point because stupidity, Kent Hovind. Yeah, basically. This is basically what just happened there. Oh my goodness, Kent. So yeah, no one has ever said that those layers in particular are separated by millions of years. Now, a stratum usually fits in what's called a member, which is a small grouping of stratum or strata that are from about the same area and usually have somewhat similar depositional environments. And then a member is part of a formation. And the formation is about as big as we usually go in terms of like types of geographical features that we tend to talk about, right? So for instance, there's the Morrison Formation, which is the formation where we get famous animals like Triceratops, Tyrannosaurus, I think Tylosaurus, but don't necessarily quote me on that one. But that's also where we get things like Edmontosaurus and Pachycephalosaurus. A lot of the famous dinosaurs you've probably heard of are from the Morrison Formation. It's an end Cretaceous formation, but within it are numerous members. And within those members are various strata. In those strata, there are often laminae. So that's the order of like hierarchy that we're talking about here. And Kent is confusing what are actually laminae for anything bigger than that, which is not how it works. He's basically confusing, he's getting confused on the level of all ducks are birds, but not all birds are ducks. That's the part of like the logic tree that he's just not following.
They form rapidly. Here, straight above this hammer, you can see a branching coal seam, a small one. Oftentimes, coal is in real tiny seams, and it's still coal, but it's just not worth going after. Too expensive, not enough there to get.
Hey, that's just mining for you, but he's not wrong, so take a drink. Yep, sometimes it doesn't make sense to go after the items. Actually, so in this area, so, you know, I live in southern Arizona, and in this area there are a lot of mines, but sometimes the mines will shut down for years at a time while being minimally maintained so that they can be started back up. And the reason for that is that some mines are only profitable when certain mineral prices are at or above a certain level, right? So, for instance, one of the things that's mined a lot out here is copper. So if the price of copper, like bulk copper ore, or not ore, but like, you know, just bulk smelted copper, is higher than the cost that it takes to get that ore from the ground, it makes more sense to shut down the mine. And then as copper prices go up, more of those mines become profitable, and so more of them will start back up. And presumably, if we start running out of copper to mine on Earth, more and more of the copper ore that was previously uneconomic to mine will become profitable to mine again. And so more and more of those mines will open up. Now that's a very long-term thing, we're talking like centuries. But presumably that's going to happen at some point, right? There's only a finite amount of copper that exists on the crust of the Earth. So there you go. The same thing is true where it's like, oh hey, there's like more gold in the oceans than there is in the rest of the world combined. Okay, cool. But it costs more than the price of gold to extract any given amount of gold from the ocean, so it doesn't matter. It's the same thing as like, there's that asteroid that's full of like platinum and gold, and it's like got $18 trillion worth of precious metals. It's like, okay, but it would cost more than that to go get it. So who cares? And that's all that's going on here, right? Sometimes some coal is too expensive during certain market conditions. Now, I do think we should probably try to phase out coal mining overall, because, you know, burning coal is really bad for the environment. But hey, maybe that's just my weird, crazy leftist commie nonsense. I guess, maybe. I don't know. Actually loves Blahai for $2 says, AIG or a bag of members with a curly cute smiley face. Thank you very much, and we will take a drink for that. All right. Now, remember, last time we got to 120 drinks. We're only at 20 now.
They look at the factors, you know, how much is there? In Wyoming, there's a place where it's 200 feet thick.
Okay.
I just read last week, I didn't document it yet, I'm going to go check it out, but I'll verify it before I put it in my seminar permanently, but that they found a...
Why, Kent? You haven't verified virtually anything else you put in your seminar. Why would you care? Just put it in there. Who cares?
Coal seam 500 feet thick. Solid coal.
Good thing it's not liquid coal.
That's a lot of coal.
Yep.
Sometimes in coal, strange artifacts are found.
Oh no, we're doing ooh parts. Oh, okay. I'm gonna have to take a break before we do ooh parts, which stands for out of place artifacts. Don't ask why the RT is in there for artifacts, whereas none of the other words get more than one letter. I think it's just so you can say ooh parts. It's gonna be dumb, and I'm not ready for it until I get more alcohol. So, yeah, in the meantime, please enjoy the musical stylings of some weirdo named Bent Hovind, no relation, while I go grab more alcohol and prepare myself for an immense amount of psychic damage. Yeah. Oh, and in case anyone is wondering, the current thing that may or may not be a lie from YouTube says that we need 97 members, which again might just be a lie. Because I don't trust YouTube anymore. I've given up trying to say that they're probably right about any of this. So, yeah. We'll be back in just a little bit. Okay, we are back. Thank you for sticking with us. Those of you who did, which seems like most of you, I really do appreciate it. So now that we are back, I do want to point out that this channel is almost entirely supported exclusively through the support that you guys give me. The amount that I get from like just ads running on my videos is minuscule. In fact, a $2 super chat is gets me more ad revenue on average than like about 200 views on a video. So like, when you think about that, 200 people could watch my video, and that's about as valuable to me in terms of keeping this channel going as one $2 super chat. So because it really is about, it's actually a little less than a penny per watch generally, but it's about a penny per watch overall most of the time. It varies. That's about what I can kind of estimate. It is ridiculous how much it helps whenever you guys do anything that helps keep me going. So if you want to help keep this channel doing what it does, doing what I love doing what you guys love to keep seeing it doing, then some of the best ways are the Patreon. That's where I get to keep the most of the money that you send my way. That starts at $1 a month. You can get a 15% discount if you go annually. So if you want to get a year worth of Patreon membership, you can pledge under $11 US. Get a full year of Patreon access. The memberships also help. That starts at $1.99. You cannot go annual, but it also gives you access to having a cool little badge. You can see like Icarus has a cool bluish badge. Dillian Wren has a like cartoony Dapper Dinosaur badge. Other people have a Ceratosaurus skull badge. A lot of cool badges. You can also get special channel emojis like the kaiju emojis, the Tunikin emojis. There's Murphy, there's Vishanti. We've got a few Klingon emojis. We've got a citation needed emoji. We've got a bingo emoji, a drink emoji, an AIG's a bag of dicks emoji, a thwing, a straw man, a liar emoji, a tiny little dog named Carmen emoji. God, let me get some Carmen emojis in the chat, everybody. Send me a few Carmen emojis. So, yeah, got a lot of emojis if you want them. We're trying to get that other emoji, the new Kip emoji. So, yeah, that is a huge help too. Both of those give you access to my super secret Discord server that's just for supporters, where we do things like just hang out. Sometimes we play games. Sometimes we watch movies or TV shows. We just finished watching Power Rangers over there. We're going to be starting Godzilla movies today with the original Godzilla. Sean07AU, who's been a member for 6 months and is at the Tetrapod level, sends all 3 of the kaiju emojis, Godzilla, Mothra, and Ghidorah, and we'll take a drink for that. So yeah, those are some great ways to help out. Obviously, super chatting, gifting memberships, super stickers are also a huge help. In fact, those 3 things combined, especially the super chats and gifted memberships, are probably the majority of what what comes in via YouTube, or just even overall. It is the reason I can keep doing this. So, but if none of those are your thing, or you're just interested, I also have merch. There's a merch store down below this video. There's a merch shelf. If you don't like any things that are on the merch shelf, there are more designs there. I just had someone comment on one of my videos that they had received one of my Dapper Dinosaur blankets and really liked it. So, you know, it's the same blanket that you can see in the background for Bent. So there's that. There's also t-shirts, mugs, baby onesies, stickers, all sorts of stuff. So there's that. Additionally, if you just want to get me a little something, I have a wish list linked in the description, as does Bent. So there's stuff from like books to sometimes a few gadgets or some food. So, you know, you want to send me some snacks or some rice. In fact, actually, I recently received another bag of rice from Tad, who sent a card that says Exterminatus via rice from Tad. So thank you very much, Tad. I had forgotten to say that earlier in the stream. So yeah, also if you are interested in helping me get my frames rendered more quickly, because they take a little while, there are instructions in the description for how to render for me on Sheepit. Sheepit is the render farm that I use to get out my animations in a timely fashion, because if I didn't use a render farm, it would take days and sometimes months. Like right now, I have to render something locally because for some reason it's just not working on Sheepit. It's just over 1,000 frames at 30 frames per second. So it's like a bit over a minute. it's going to take until well into tomorrow, and I started it last night. So it's currently rendering right now. Right now, in London, locally. I just finished frame 673. So, yeah. So yeah, that is also a huge help. I currently have, I believe, 6 people helping out right now. We've got, let's see, who we have right now. We've got Chimera. These are the names of the computers. Chimera. Desktop. Bunch of numbers and letters. Frustration. Ben's new computer. Another desktop with a bunch of numbers. And Darth Maul are some of the computers that are helping out. So there you go. And by the way, Ben's new computer is actually Ben's old computer. Fun fact.
That's true. It's pretty old.
Yeah. All right. So, thank you so much for everyone who has supported the channel and who is continuing to support the channel. And if you are interested, please feel free to help out. Like I said, one thing is, if you do any gifted memberships, it has the advantage of making me drink and helping get us closer to the Mudkip Davis, which has been a struggle. So I'm trying to get that for a few months now. And the thing that's annoying is that as people give more gifted memberships, some of them also expire and aren't renewed, which means it's always an uphill struggle. But I think we can, I believe in us. I think we can do it.
This is a bell found inside a lump of coal. Newt Anderson.
Hey, Bent.
What's up?
Want to guess what the evidence is that that bell was ever associated with any lump of coal ever, anywhere?
It was in someone's imagination.
Yeah, someone said that one day. And their evidence was that they said it.
Yeah. And he still has the bell, so.
I mean, I guess. So basically, WV Mr. Newton, which is, I guess that's West Virginia. Okay. So Mr. Newton of West Virginia, presumably, said that he found this inside a lump of coal in 1944. There was no one there to verify that. There was no examination. No one has since found bits of coal attached to it or something. And the style of bell is basically just one that was made in the 19th or 20th century in India, which is probably what it is. It's probably a 19th or 20th century bell from India that wasn't found in a lump of coal. We have literally no reason to think this was ever found in coal, which is probably going to be a theme going forward, in case you're wondering.
Found it. I called him. There's his phone number back in '98. I talked to him again 2 months ago. He's got this thing sitting on his desk. Here he was about 12 years old or something back in West Virginia. He breaks open a lump of coal, and there's a bell inside. There's a strange little thing on top, some kind of deity, it looks like.
It's an Indian deity, Kent. Because, again, it's probably a 19th or 20th century bell from India.
Who knows, you know?
I do.
Yeah. Don't know what it is.
Yeah, Kent, because you just want to think it's an antediluvian bell from coal, even though the only reason to think that is because one guy says that. A guy who, by the way, is getting attention from people like you for saying it, which right there is a motive to lie. Nothing about this bell has ever indicated that it was found in coal. There is literally no reason to believe that, besides some guy said it. And given what we deal with, we know on this channel that some guy said it. Not really great evidence. Turns out some guy has said a lot of things that were wrong. Don't believe some guy. Believe things like verification, provenance. Does that bell have any provenance? Nope. We have no documentation for where it came from. No evidence it came from there. We don't know when exactly it was found. We don't know anything like that. It's literally just a bell some dude has, and he says, I found it in coal when a kid. And his evidence is just the story. And the thing is, in other parts of life, we know Kent doesn't believe when someone just tells a story, right? Because he claims that a lot of evolutionary biology is just a story. It's not. There's actually evidence. But in this case, it is just a story, and there is no other evidence. And yet Kent, it confirms his bias if the story is true. So he's just going to accept it. Yep, that particular story that some guy just said one day, I like it, so it's true. That's not how anything works.
This zinc and silver vessel was found in solid rock, supposed to be 600 million years old.
Hey, Bent, what do you think the common theme is going to be here?
Yeah, there's no provenance.
Yeah, we have no actual evidence of this ever having been found inside solid rock from 600 million years old. That's just not a thing. It sounds nice, but we don't have any evidence of it. Okay, here's my advice to all you OOPArt hunters. If you find something stuck in rocks, one, make sure you're documenting everything, and two, don't extract it entirely from the rock. Leave some of the rock stuck to it so people can test the rock. Because otherwise, all you have is just a piece of metal or whatever, and no one can do anything with that, right? Like, literally, I could just say, hey, this Guinness cup that I'm not drinking Guinness out of, and instead I'm drinking like some pomegranate juice and rum out of, I found it in rock that's supposed to be 2 billion years old. And my evidence is that I said it. You shouldn't believe that. That's a nonsense claim.
No, this is pre-flood, not pre-Cambrian.
Kent, all you have is a story. For a guy who likes to complain about how evolution is just a bunch of lines on papers and just so stories, it's kind of amazing that you would fall for this. Plus, you don't have to. Nothing but, like, most creationist organizations don't really talk about OOPArts because they know that there's nothing to it. That doesn't make them stop being young Earth creationists. Kent doesn't have to stop being a young Earth creationist for that.
What appears to be a spark plug was found encased in solid rock. This was in California.
Okay, so this is a little bit different. We do, in fact, happen to know. So we've got the rock here, right? So we know that part's true. And it is, in fact, a spark plug. In fact, it's a spark plug, if I remember correctly, from about like the 1920s or 30s. So it's a pretty early spark plug. Because it wasn't that much longer before that spark plugs were basically invented. But the rock it's encased in is a calcite concretion, which is formed from hard water. So you ever get that hard white gunk on your faucets if you live in a place with hard water? And then people will, sell you things like water softener tabs or whatever to put into your water supply to maybe soften it up so that doesn't happen so much. And when it does happen, you get a bunch of CLR. You stick the faucet or whatever in the CLR until all that white gunk dissolves away. That's what this is stuck in. Not sedimentary rock, not volcanic rock. We don't know where the concretion, whatever the calcite was found in. We don't know. But it was stuck under hard water. That's it. That's what happened. And we know that can form rapidly, and that it forms all the time now. That's it. That's all that is. It's a spark plug with hard water that has evaporated around it. That's it.
From Reader's Digest, Mysteries Unexplained. In Alancha, California, in Owens Lake, they found what looked like a geode when they broke it open.
Was it a geode or was it a concretion, Kent? Because both of those look like roundish lumps of rock.
Looked like a spark plug inside.
Because it was.
So they x-rayed it. There's the x-ray of this geode.
Show it to us.
Just read this here. What appeared to be a
Nope. We don't get to see the x-ray, I guess.
standard geode was picked up near Alancha, California. Fossil shells encrusting it.
I don't see any fossil cells encrusting anything, but okay.
Surface are at least 500,000 years old.
Chesh's most loyal backstabber says, if calcium deposits make something an OOPArt, then my kettle is a great argument against deep time. That reminds me, when was the last time we descaled the kettle?
It's been a while.
You might want to boil some vinegar in there.
I'll think about it.
Yeah, right. This object came to be known as the Caso artifact. Coso. The names of the people who found the artifact were Mike Sull, whoever they are, okay? They found it in 1961 on a mountain peak 4,300 feet high, 340 feet above the dry Owens Lake.
Oh man, a dry lake that might have had hard water in it. The exact kind of place where you might expect hard water to then evaporate into significant amounts of calcium. Weird.
Geologists think that about 1,000 years ago, Owens Lake was as high as the top of that peak.
I'm gonna want a citation, but sure.
Currently, no professional scientist has ever investigated the artifact. Even though it is found to be magnetic, it's quite similar technologically to a modern-day ceramic supercomputer capacitor.
No, it's not. It's a spark plug. I'm just taking a drink. I've looked into all of these. It's just a spark plug that has some calcium buildup. And also, we don't actually have the provenance for it. Once again, I'm just accepting that that's probably where it was found because nothing about that is extraordinary. But we don't actually know where it was found. We don't actually have any idea of the history of it. But yeah, it's a spark plug with a bunch of hard water that was around it. That's all it is.
June 11th, 1991, Mrs. Culp found a gold...
Did he say 1991?
Yes, he did.
Okay, what does that say?
It says 1891.
Okay, just checking that I wasn't just seeing things.
chain inside a lump of coal. One year when I was up visiting my brother who lives in Illinois, that's where I grew up, I got the phone books and called every culp in Illinois.
Man, that would be so annoying if I were any of those people. But then again, I guess back in the day that was more common. That you would just get called because someone was looking for a particular person and just going through the phone book, I guess. I don't know. I don't super remember well when phone books were still just like how you got people's numbers. So like, maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe it wasn't all that uncommon or annoying. I don't know. Hey, if you're someone who remembers what it would be like to have to look through everyone with the right like surname to find a particular person who might not be listed by their first name in a phone book, but like might be listed by a family member's name or something, let me know if it was like, was it reasonably common that you would get calls from someone like, oh, hey, I'm looking for this person. Do they live there? And then like you say yes or no or whatever. Like, let me know. Like, I don't know. I feel like I would be annoyed by that, but I'm also annoyed every single time my phone rings, even when it's someone I do know. So like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just not a good like standard for this. Because I generally don't want to ever talk to anyone on the phone, nor do I want to listen to phone messages, which is why my inbox for voice messages has been full for over a decade. If you want to talk to me, don't send me a voicemail, because you can't. You literally can't. It is impossible. I won't let you. I still have messages in there that are over a decade old, because I don't want to listen to your voicemail. Just text me. And if you don't know how to text me, probably aren't someone I want to talk to. At least not on the phone.
Trying to find out what happened to this thing. Who has the gold chain?
The gold chain that may or may not exist, that was found over a century ago when this video was made. Remember, because this video was made after 1991. This was made in the early 2000s, I believe we figured out. Despite the fact that it's still being filmed on VHS for some reason. So, like, yeah.
I found out some people who said, oh yeah, I remember seeing that. I knew about that. Grandma had that. I don't know where it went. Last time I saw it was 1959. So if you watch the tape and you're a culp, or please find out for me who the culprit is that has...
No, this is one I haven't been able to look into because I've not actually found any evidence that this is even a real thing that existed. Beyond the story, right? So with the previous artifacts, we've at least had like photographs that these are actual objects, at least. With this story, I have no idea. I don't even know if there is actually a gold chain associated with this story. Now, it wouldn't surprise me if there were one, but once again, we don't actually have any documentation of this. And this is one of the things with artifacts, as well as fossils and all sorts of other stuff. If you don't have it documented exactly where you got it, it's worthless. It's one of the problems with the Mark Armitage alleged Triceratops one. We don't know where he got it. We just basically know that it was Beisch Ranch, but that's too big of an area to say for certain that that's like anything about that. And so we just don't know what he found. And even if Mark Armitage is 100% right, that is in fact Triceratops horridus bone, full of soft tissue that's definitely intrinsic to the dinosaur, doesn't matter because he didn't sufficiently document the find. So we can't say anything about it. Same thing going on here. This is why it's important to not just take artifacts out of the ground. Now, in some cases, like, if you find an arrowhead in the stream, okay. Every museum in the area is going to be full of well-documented arrowheads. And if you take an arrowhead out of a stream, chances are you're not destroying a priceless artifact that's going to give us all sorts of insight into, like, I don't know, like, if you're in America, Paleo-American cultures or something. Or, like, if you take a trilobite off of the ground in, like, the middle of nowhere, New Mexico or something. Chances are that fossil wasn't going to be the one that was going to come with some kind of giant breakthrough for paleontology. So there are going to be some exceptions where, like, these are artifacts that are a dime a dozen. It doesn't matter that much. But for the most part, that is the reason why you don't take fossils or artifacts away with you. And if you find something that you think is important, you document where you found it and you talk to professionals so they can further document it and dig it up in a controlled manner with control over the site, with a site grid, with a site map, and all that stuff, so people actually know where it came from. Because once you remove it, and you can no longer demonstrate where you got it, that's it. It's useless. It's completely pointless to science.
This thing.
Apparently, so Becca Justiniano says it was just part of having a phone. I don't remember it being annoying. Okay, that's good. Yeah. I do recognize that my attitude towards phones is much, much, much different than the attitude that many people have had over history with phones. And I do, to some extent, remember being excited to get a phone call from, like, friends or whatever. So, like, it's not entirely alien to me that might not be super annoying. I'm just thinking about it now, which I realize isn't fair. But right now, I would hate it if someone called me, be like, hey, is I don't know, Fred there? He's got the same last name as you. I'd be like, shut up, and I would just hang up. I wouldn't have time for that. Hillhugger for $5 redo says, if only Kent had spent half as much time reading a science textbook as he has reading phone books. Yeah. It's... Or half as much time reading actual science books as he has reading conspiracy theories about bells buried in coal, for which there is no evidence, beyond the story that there was a bell found in coal.
And I would like to buy the gold chain for our museum here.
Why? It would just be a gold chain. You could just go buy a gold chain. It wouldn't be any different. Because no one has any reason to think that any gold chain you buy from anyone was ever stuck in rock that was dated at 600 million years old. There is no evidence that ever happened, Kent. All you would have is a gold chain that came from who knows where. Just go buy a gold chain. It doesn't make a difference. You going and buying a gold chain right now from a jewelry store is exactly as much evidence of an out-of-place artifact as you buying a gold chain from some lady from the 1950s. Or the 1890s. You don't have any evidence it came from where anyone said it did. So it doesn't matter, Kent.
A carved stone was found in solid coal in Webster, Iowa.
Yeah, maybe. You get any evidence of that isn't just the Daily News, Kent? From 1897, a time when newspapers were known to be chock full of just bullshit. This is the same time period when they said that Confederate soldiers had shot down a pterodactyl. Or that a giant skeleton had been found inside of a mound in Ohio, and that the skeleton had been destroyed by the Smithsonian Institute. There's all sorts of bullshit from the 1890s in newspapers. Because the business of a newspaper isn't to report the news, it's to sell newspapers. And back when no one could really check up on stuff, they didn't really care that much if what they printed was true, so much as they did if people could tell it wasn't true, and whether or not it would sell. If people couldn't verify it wasn't true, and it would sell papers, they would print it. There's a reason why historians don't really take newspapers seriously as primary documents, in most cases, until pretty recently, so recently that in many cases, it's not properly history yet. Because as a general rule of thumb, if you're doing a history paper, and whatever you're writing about happened while you were alive, it probably doesn't count as history yet. It's not a hard rule, but generally speaking, it's pretty hard to get a history paper printed or published that involves events that happened while you were alive to see them. Blockmeister for $2 says you get 50 characters for $2.15. For $5 is a bet. I feel like there's a pun or a joke there and I'm not getting it. I'm sorry. And also, I'm not sure why there's an extra zero. Like, it's 150 mils instead of just 15 cents. I'm sorry, Blockmeister. I know that there's something that I'm not getting, and I apologize. I hate that. I hate when I get a super chat, and I definitely do not get whatever the joke is supposed to be. But thank you very much for the $2. I really do appreciate it.
A stone somebody had obviously carved on. Daniel, behind the curtain again,
I love how in the last two cases we don't even get the object. The object itself might not even physically exist in the last two cases. That's always fun. Someone somewhere maybe found a chain somewhere. Oh, okay. Maybe.
to keep sending you back there, is a replica of this iron pot found in a coal.
Oh, a replica. So is there an actual original that we could be shown, Kent?
Matrix, if you could grab that. It's on about 4 shelves up. See, it's kind of a dull black. Can you reach it there? They make copies of this. Yes, sir, that's it. Thank you, sir.
Who makes copies of it?
No, this creation evidence is Carl Baugh's museum in Texas, okay?
Okay.
Glen Rose, yeah. This is the replica that they're making of the artifact as it was found in solid coal.
Take another drink. Hey, Bent. What do you think the evidence is that this was ever found in solid coal?
Imagination again.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But hey, the replica has fake coal around it. So I don't know what I'm supposed to get from that. Yeah, I don't know. Also, this kind of looks like a lamp, not a pot. Although it's double-sided, so maybe, I don't know, maybe not. It's a weird thing, whatever it is. Very small.
It's an iron pot, apparently used for, melting small objects, to pour them out into something else. Now, how could you explain a human artifact in a lump of coal?
I mean, I probably couldn't, but I haven't seen any reason to think that there ever has been a human artifact in a lump of coal. In fact, none of these have actually had any documentation that would provide evidence that any of these things have ever happened. So, yeah, I don't...
Must have been a human before the coal was formed.
Or someone made it up. We don't have any evidence that it wasn't made up, Kent. Which is the more likely explanation. Because you know what has never actually happened? No one has ever actually been able to document an out-of-place artifact. Ever. People just come up with objects and say they're out-of-place artifacts. And it's never once been documented. Why is that? I'm going to go ahead and say it's probably because there are no out-of-place artifacts, Kent. I think that's a simpler explanation. What's the other explanation? That the only people who ever find out-of-place artifacts are people who don't know enough to actually just tell someone what they found where, instead of just taking it away and then coming up with a story that no one can ever check on? Is the explanation really that only idiots find these artifacts? That can't be the explanation. That only people who don't know what the hell they're doing are the only ones who ever find these. What other conclusion am I supposed to come to if I'm going to take this seriously? Only people who don't know what they're doing find these, huh, Kent? It's convenient for you.
And that would be people before the flood. American Weekly, 1922, ran this article.
Hey, we're out of the 19th century. That's a plus.
New York Sunday American. The sole of a shoe.
We're going to take a drink. Hey, Bent,
Hey, what's up?
what about that indicates that it's definitely a shoe and not, say, any other shape?
Yeah, I thought it was like an eel-like pattern.
Yeah,
Not that that's what it is, but like nothing told me that was a shoe imprint.
it's a concretion. I'm familiar with this one too. It's just a concretion that's been broken in half and also broken longitudinally. That's it. It's just a concretion. It's not a fossil imprint of a shoe. There's no stitching pattern. It's just a concretion, which are bits of harder rock that form around some central core, kind of like a rock pearl, basically, right? Some object, sometimes it's a shell, sometimes it's a bit of harder rock that has fallen into whatever area is having deposition, and then bits of hard dissolved material finds that as like a nucleation site where it can come out of solution from the water, and it builds up a harder shell around it that can exist inside the softer sedimentary rock. There are places where you can find entire beaches that just have concretion strewn all over them, like little boulders. They're all just sort of oblong, roundish shapes. And they're eroding out of the cliffs at the beach because the concretions are harder than the sedimentary rock that surrounds them. That's what this is. It's just a concretion. There's nothing about it that would indicate that it's a shoe other than that you could finish that shape with a shoe shape. You could also finish it with a whole infinite variety of other shapes. But shoe, I guess, is kind of technically in there. And also, Michael A. Cremo is one of those Hindu-influenced old Earth guys who thinks that the humans have been around for trillions of years, as has the Earth. So he actually does think that this rock is older, if anything, than the 213 to 248 million years old. So Michael Cremo has like the opposite idea of Kent. He's like a super old Earth creationist.
From Nevada. The stitching pattern was clearly visible, including the twist of the thread.
That's just a lie. No one has ever demonstrated anything like that for this formation.
The rock was 213 to 248 million years old. Now, Michael Cremo, who wrote this book, Hidden History of the Human Race, is a Hindu.
Hey, I was saying the same thing I did. Is that a prediction? I don't know.
Sure, why not?
All right, I'll drink for it. By the way, I say this a lot for Christianity. I'm going to say it now for Hinduism. Most Hindu people do not, as far as I know, reject science on the age of the Earth, and you do not have to do so in order to be a Hindu. There are a lot of scientists who are Hindu. In fact, there's a reason why there is a Hindu god statue at CERN. You do not have to reject science to be a Hindu. I am not saying that Hindus are, by and large, science rejectors. That is not my claim.
I've talked to him several times. The book is excellent, by the way, on strange things that are found out of place. Michael Cremo spends an enormous amount of time documenting things that are found that shouldn't be there.
And Michael Cremo's evidence comes in two flavors. Things that aren't artifacts, and artifacts that don't have any source attached to them. Are you shocked?
I am.
Really? I find that itself shocking.
Yeah, I'm not shocked.
Yeah,
I was
I know.
lying.
But he believes the standard geologic column.
Kinda. He thinks it's actually older, but like whatever, who cares?
He really believes that rock is 200 million years old. So, the conclusions he came to is aliens visited the planet 200.
No, Kent, that was a joke printed in Pravda, the Soviet propaganda magazine, about that particular rock. Michael Cremo thinks it was actually a human shoe print made by a human because the entire point of Hindu old Earth creationism is that humans have been around for all this long period of time, which accounts for the different yugas that are present in Hindu scripture. Yuga being basically like a name for an age, right? And so there are different yugas in which different aspects of like human ethics and culture are at the forefront. And as the cycle of yugas goes on, each of which lasts tens to hundreds of millions of years, humans start to sort of degenerate morally into worse and worse versions of themselves, not in terms of biology or physical, nature, but in terms of moral development, until eventually you get to the final yuga in the cycle where humans are basically all just a bunch of assholes, and then the whole cycle resets. It's this whole cosmic idea about like starting at like the heights of enlightenment and ethics and learning and everything, and then degenerating only to have it reset. And so because these yugas are supposed to take such a long time, you can't actually fit an entire cycle into the age of the Earth as presented by science if you take the time frames literally, and you take the concept of yugas literally. That's the point that Michael Cremo is making. The alien thing is just something some Soviet said as a joke, because he didn't actually think it was a footprint, and he was mocking people who did. I'm going to take another drink. Or I don't even know.
A million years ago. Why not question the idea that the rock is 200 million years old?
Because, Kent, that's physically impossible. And so if you're going to reject one physically impossible thing, or sorry, if you're going to accept one physically impossible thing, that humans made that in the first place, it makes more sense to reject no other physically impossible things. Whereas Kent would be like, what if we did two physically impossible things? What if this is actually a human footprint from the middle of the flood when all the humans are supposed to be dead in the first place, Kent? How does that make any more sense, Kent? How could this be a human footprint from the middle of the flood that's forming in rock under all that water? How is a guy walking in the middle of the flood, Kent? Your explanation makes less sense than Michael Cremo's. At least if there were a human around 200 million years ago, he could walk on something. I'm taking another drink. Jeez, I cannot with this guy today. I really want to know how Kent thinks a fossil footprint formed under hundreds of meters of water that's all sloshing around and having bogs form under it and having boulders knock around and depositing hundreds of meters of coal. How'd you get a guy walking around in that, Kent?
Why do you accept that and come to these wild other conclusions?
Because it's somehow less crazy than the thing you think, Kent. To believe what you believe, I have to have a whole bunch of impossible things, also ignoring the heat problem. To believe the Michael Cremo thing, I just have to think that humans are special boys that have always been here. I mean, they're not. But that's all it takes. It's just that one little thing. And then, sure, maybe I can put in like a literalist interpretation of the Yuga cycle. I don't know. Also, hey, if you're watching this and you're either a current or former Hindu, please check me on the whole Yuga thing, because that's just my understanding, but I have had a lot of trouble finding really good sources about Hinduism in English so that I can get a grasp on all these concepts. And so I am sure that there's something I'm missing or misunderstanding or something like that, and I would love to have a better understanding of that. So if that's you, please let me know. Because, yeah, what do I know? I've never been Hindu. So, like, let's see. Pegajace, I have to finish the name. The apostate for $2 says, have some more brain coolant with a smiley face. Well, I did have some brain coolant. Although technically saying have some brain coolant isn't one of our drink triggers. But then Pegajace, the apostate, has gifted another membership, so we will take a drink. Very much.
When they found dinosaurs, when Mackall went to Africa, said there are
Mackall? Ooh, I don't know who that is. Whatever, it doesn't matter.
dinosaurs still living in Africa.
Oh, we're going for Mokele and Mbembe again. Fun.
He came back and said, it's amazing they survived for 70 million years.
No, it's not. There's dinosaurs all over the place. I saw dinosaurs today. I see dinosaurs most days.
Yeah, me too.
I would have to try to not see a dinosaur on any given day. Like, I would have to stay inside with all the windows, like, blinds close and never open the door. Never go outside. I go outside pretty much every day. I think the only times I don't go outside, or only days I don't go outside, are like if I'm like ill or something. Because at the very least, I'm going to take something out to the trash or something, right? Like take it to the recycling bin or something like that. And, you know, even when I'm inside, I like to look out the window. Hard to miss the dinosaurs. There's nothing amazing about dinosaurs having survived till today. You encounter them daily. Unless you live in a place with no dinosaurs. Like, I don't know. Maybe you live at like the South Pole Station down in Antarctica. Which, it is still one of the funniest things to me. Hearing Will Duffy try to get Catzoid, the flat earther, to tell him where on a flat earth map the South Pole Station that people visit is. He's like, it's at 90 degrees south. And it's like, okay, but that's a circle on your map. It's a gigantic circle. Where on the circle is it? If I had to pick a direction to fly from in, say, like, Santiago, which direction would I fly to get to that camp? And he's like, it's at 90 degrees south. I don't know what else to tell you. I don't know why you don't get it. Okay. Okay. I'll give Kent this. He is smarter than most flat earthers, and he's more coherent than Roger from Mud Fossil U. So, yeah. Although if you're a fan of Roger from Mud Fossil U, I am currently rendering frames for my Roger from Mud Fossil U video. So I have 36,000 frames that I've uploaded. The first 12,000 are 15% done, the second 12,000 are 6% done, and the third 12,000 are 2% done. And the 13,000 section says it's going to take 16 more hours, which is an improvement from the 16 days it said it was going to take earlier today. So, you know, that's nice, I guess. In other words, hey, help me render if you can.
The thought never entered his mind. Hold it. Maybe your whole theory is baloney, okay? Genesis 8 says the water assuaged. This is a very interesting word.
Not really.
The water did not just go down or dry up. What happened to the water after the flood? Well, next week, we'll talk more about what happened to the water after the flood and try to finish up what's on our videotape number 6. Then we can get into the question and answer session on carbon dating and stuff like that coming up next.
A question and answer session. That sounds like an actual nightmare. But I also am not sure that I want to start up the next video with only like 15 minutes left to go on this. So I don't know. What do you guys think? You guys think we should bother starting up the next video and then getting almost none of it done? Or should we just fill in a little bit of time, talk about what's coming up, stuff like that, and then, you know, wrap it up? I don't know. What do you think, Bent?
I'm down for either.
Okay, well, what's the audience down for?
That's the question.
That is really the question. But Uparts is one of those special things that really only the bottom tier of creationists bother with. So, like, the Hovinds will talk about it, and Carl Baugh will talk about it. But, like, you don't get, like, Ken Ham, or Randy Galuza, or, like, Jason Lyle, or John Sanford, or any of these people talking about this. Like, the people who have actual PhDs, like Kurt Wise, Brian Thomas, these types, you don't really find them talking about Uparts, because even they know that there is just no there, right? You don't have provenance for any of these things, and you need that. It's by far the most important part of paleontology and archaeology, not because it tells you the most, but because it verifies that what you're saying about it is reasonable because you have the context behind it, right? It's sort of like, hey, did you know that the Bible both says that there is no help in the Lord, that there is no hope in the Lord, and that there is no God? You can find all of that in the Bible. But the context is actually that that's something that someone who's wrong is saying those things, right? In fact, they're often given as examples of things that you could say to be wrong. In one of my videos a while back, I gave a whole selection of such Bible verses about things where the Bible says there is no God, God isn't going to help anyone, and there's no hope. They're like over and over and over again. And every time, if you look up the context, it turns out that the actual sentiment of that is the opposite. And that's why context is also important. You cannot derive any actual information from something unless you have the context about where it came from. And it even works in geology, right? if you just say, oh, hey, I have this sandstone, what can you tell me about it? Other than, like, how coarse it is and, like, how rounded or angular, like, you might get a sense of, like, the environment it formed in, but that's it. You can't tell how old it is, you can't tell where it's from, anything like that. If all you have is a hunk of sandstone, you have to be able to give it a context in order to do things like tell where it's from, what was going on in the world when it formed overall, instead of just in that one location. What kind of animals or plants might have been around. You need that context. And the same is true for archaeology, the same is true for paleontology. You need all that, or it's just a bunch of just some bare facts that can't connect to anything. And that's the problem with out of place artifacts, is none of them have any context. Some guy said he found a thing. Well, great. Some guy said he found Bigfoot. Some guy said he was abducted by aliens. Some guy said that, I don't know, building a concentration camp in southern Florida isn't a fascist thing to do. Doesn't matter, some guy said that. We don't actually have any evidence. And that's one of the reasons why only the bottom tier of creationists will do this, because it's such an easy thing to refute. You don't even have to know anything about the artifact to refute it. All you have to say is, hey, how do we know that this isn't just a story? That's it. And the answer is there is no way. It is just a story. So, yeah. Corey says, talk about how FTFE managed to do a 69-hour straight stream. Yeah, I don't know how he managed to do a 69-hour straight stream, honestly. I don't think I could. Especially not while I'm recovering from a concussion, by the way, which seems like a dangerous thing to do. Hoping that Craig doesn't just, like, drop dead. I need him for Star Trek. Which is not my only reason to want Craig not to drop dead. You know, I'd like Craig to just live a happy, healthy life,
Right.
which, you know,
Of course.
like...
That's Star Trek.
But get that. Yeah. I'll be honest, that's part of the reason. Most of it is because, you know, I generally like Craig and I want him to be a happy, healthy individual who continues to have a happy, healthy life overall to the maximum extent possible. But also I do need him for Star Trek. So, great. Die of concussion complications after Star Trek. Wait until we're done. We only have 3 more seasons. But yeah, no, that was pretty crazy, and I was actually pretty shocked that it lasted that long. I was expecting maybe like 24, 36 hours, but no, yeah, he went for a ridiculous amount of time. And hey, man, good for him. So yeah, well, we're gonna start wrapping things up because we've only got about 12 minutes left, and like whatever, I don't really want to start the next one. We'll just start fresh with Class 5, CSE Class 5. I already have it downloaded. We're gonna be starting that on, I believe, the Windows, why are you being a jerk like this? Open up the calendar. Oh my goodness. Yeah, the 30th is the next time we're going to be doing Kent with Bent. So, all right, Bent, do you have anything you want to tell people before we get out of here and start watching some Godzilla?
No, I do not. I have nothing.
Nothing at all?
Nothing at all.
That's deeply disappointing.
I'm sorry.
You should be. You'd be ashamed of yourself.
Well, I'm not ashamed, but I am sorry.
All right. Well, I guess that's okay. All right. So, what is coming up over here? Depraved Ambient says, I don't want to watch Craig now because he's using Gen AI a lot. Yeah, I'll be honest. That is also a problem for me. I don't think he's about to stop. And when I notice obvious Gen AI in his thumbnails, I generally am not clicking on those videos. Yep. I wish he wouldn't. But yeah, he is. And look, I'm pretty public about my stance about it. I'm sure he knows. Yeah. So can't disagree with you about that. As DM Wing says, boo Gen AI. Yeah, Gen AI should basically just be it's terrible for the environment. It's terrible for the artistic talents of humans. It's bad art. It's not even art. It's bad images. Yeah, it's relies on copyright infringement entirely. Yeah, it's just a bunch of billionaires stealing art from mostly poor artists, not giving them a single cent, and then using that to churn out worse art for people in exchange for just further wrecking the environment. There's no upside. It's all downsides. Yeah. So, Jillian Run says, I have a hard time trusting anyone who uses it. I mean, look, it's not like it's a single issue that is like going to dominate them and their trustworthiness. So just because someone uses Gen AI doesn't mean that everything that they do is going to be then therefore questionable. It means that there is some lapse in their judgment around that particular thing. And I find that the people who are most likely to do it are the people who are the least familiar with how art actually works in terms of like being a person who does art as part of their living or as their living. So like, I get why people don't get it. I don't think that's a good excuse, but I get why people don't get it. But hey, let's talk about what's coming up here on the channel. So today is, Tuesday. So on Thursday at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, we've got a premiere. That's September 4th. Walter Veith Wants You Dead. Because he does. If Walter Veith got his way, most of you would be dead. Not because he hates you necessarily, not because he wants the government to come out and get you and kill you, but because if we followed Walter Veith's advice, we would set back science hundreds of years, and the very things that are keeping most of my audience alive, things like medicine, surgeries, sanitation, reasonably nutritious food that is in abundance, would not exist, and you would, as a result, be dead. So Walter Veith, he doesn't necessarily want to kill you, but if he got his way, most of you would probably be dead. And I'm included in that, and so is Bent. He and I would also probably be dead. So that is on Thursday. On Friday, I'm not going to be on the show, but over on Top Hats Off, we are having episode, or session 1, I suppose, of the Alien TTRPG with the cinematic play scenario, Destroyer of Worlds. So in case you're not familiar, what cinematic play is it's sort of like a one-shot, but it usually takes a few sessions. It's a set story with some pre-generated characters that don't have any character advancement. And the goal of it is to sort of emulate going through a movie in the Alien franchise. Not necessarily a particular movie, just a movie. And so there will be things like PCs with conflicting goals. There may even be like PC on PC combat occasionally, although usually once that happens, one of the PCs is going to be retired from being a PC. But it's a lot of fun, but I need a little bit of a break, so I'm taking a break with that. So that's what's happening there. We are on hiatus with Star Trek Endurance. That will be coming back probably next month. So we're going to have a few sessions of the Alien game, and Maddie is also going to have a session of a RPG that she has come up with. I think it's 2 pages worth of rules. It's called Scots and Cats. And the idea is based on the idea that if all of the cats in the world invaded Scotland, every Scot would have to kill on average 114 cats, because there were about 114 times as many cats on Earth as there are people living in Scotland. So, yes, it is going to be an RPG about cats invading, all the cats invading Scotland, and you have to kill your requisite number of cats.
These are just house cats?
Yes, we're not talking tigers or lions, just regular old kitty cats.
Okay.
Yep, but they're invading Scotland, and you have to defend Scotland because you're playing a bunch of Scottish people. So that is one of the games we're going to test out. So let's see. Then on Saturday, I should be back with Vishanti and Kip to talk more about Brian Thomas giving us bad reasons why various Bible stories are historically true, even though most of the ones he's going to talk about we know aren't. He's also going to strawman people who are skeptical of the historicity of various parts of the Bible. Like, he likes to pretend that, like, well, if it's not found in the archaeological record, then scholars just say it's wrong and the Bible got that wrong, which isn't actually the argument that anyone has made, right? Like, no one's saying that the fact that we haven't found some particular Bible character means that he's definitely not a historical, right? We just don't have corroborating evidence, so we can't say for certain that he is historical. But yeah, so Brian Thomas is going to just get all of that stuff wrong, and that is going to be at, let's see, noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, here on this channel. Then on next Tuesday, we're going to be doing Tisdale Tuesday on a Tuesday this time. We did it on a Saturday last time. But that's with Chesh, and we talk about Lawrence Tisdale and where the heck his balls are. Because he handed off his balls, and we haven't seen them since. And so we are wondering, where are Lawrence's balls? It is a bit of a mystery, and we're hoping that by the end of his talk, he does get his balls back. But we're not sure, because we haven't got that far yet. So, if you want to help us solve the mystery of where Lawrence Tisdale's balls are, hang out on Tuesday, and that will once again be at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. And finally, if you are interested, we are going to be watching Godzilla, the original Godzilla from 1954, over in the general chat of my Discord server. So come hang out for that. It's going to be fun. It's a good movie. It's definitely a darker movie than you're probably used to for Godzilla, because, oh boy, it's Godzilla started out as like a metaphor for the atomic bomb, and it's about as dark as you would expect from a metaphor for the atomic bomb. So yeah, be prepared for that. It's also got much cheesier special effects than any of the later stuff, even the stuff that was a bit goofier in tone. But hey, I think it's an excellent movie. I think it's a classic. Come hang out with us. Do know we are going to be watching it in Japanese with English subtitles, so you're going to have to deal with that fact. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. So with that being said, thank you so much, everybody. I really appreciate it. Remember, the Patreon and the channel memberships are there if you want to help keep this channel afloat, because it does need to stay afloat, or it's going to have to shut down or shrink back considerably. But yeah, with that being said, I hope you all stay safe out there, and furthermore, ICE must be abolished. Hey, before you leave, I just want to take a second to thank my patrons and channel members, especially those pledging $20 or above. Ben Hovind, Tapioca Weasel, Arrow Dodger, Caleb Anderson, Dan Sheedy, Eleron Teller, Phil Cavara, Ian Chen, Kelvin Brostock Van Manen, Landon Knoll, Mabdy Babdy, Sphincter of Doom, Volis, North Texas Fossils, and John Ackerman. It's because of my channel members and patrons whom you're seeing on screen that this channel can stay afloat. Without you, it would all shut down. If you want to join the team, there's a link to join the channel below this video, and there's a link to join the Patreon in the description. On the Patreon, you can get a 10% discount for pledging annually, and either way, you get early access to virtually all of my scripted videos, often 3 to 5 months before they come out for the general public. Thanks for watching.